most people aren't, they're just consuming. They're not creating anything. All they do is they get mad at the TV. They're not doing anything. So I always challenge people to become a creator. If you don't like something, go out and change it. Go out and win in life. That's the best kind of revenge anyway.
I've had guests from the entertainment world, the political world, the athletic world, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, some of the most successful people in the world. Who does that? Nobody, which is exactly why you should.
Oftentimes your biggest cheerleaders are the ones that have achieved things that are, much greater than yourself.
Sure.
We're in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho with Randy Kaplan. He actually goes by Randall Kaplan, but I call him Randy. So Randy Kaplan, you guys, this is a venture capitalist friend of mine who we're lucky enough in Coeur d'Alene to have here, 2 months a year you come here? 3 months? 3 months? Okay. Coeur d'Alene, by the way, one of the most beautiful areas in America. I think that's why this guy's here, right?
Epic. Yeah. Best place on earth.
Awesome. Anyway, this is someone that I look up to. He's interviewed some of the most amazing people on planet Earth on his podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
In Search of Excellence.
I want to give him a shout out. In Search of Excellence. What a name, right? So we're going to take a deep dive here with Randy. I can't wait to hear some of the stories that make the man you see today. Randy's very humble. He doesn't want me to really go into all the excellent things that he's done in his life, so maybe we'll pull some of those stuff out. But he's built a hell of a company, undeniable, I would say. Can I at least say that? There's a humble guy here, you guys.
We'll psychoanalyze his hesitancy shortly.
Anyway, he is, man. But this is someone that I really look up to. I enjoy being around him, and he really gives me a blueprint for really how to move up in business and life. So I'm really thankful you're here today, man.
Appreciate being here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, welcome,
I think
Randy.
the world of you as well, as you know.
Thank you, Randy. It actually means a lot coming from you. So, well, let's start into it. So, Man on a Mission, we really like to start from the depths of hell, if that is a place that we might be able to start. Now, everyone's got a different reality. They have a different testimony. And from what I've found is the people that really rise to the top, oftentimes they have the roughest starts. They have the bloodiest beginnings. And so this is where we like to extract gold. So I don't know if you can start anywhere you want. Where would you want to start in Randy's life that really could take us back to the person that's not sitting here today, the one that you had to create?
I think we all start with family and how we were raised, and we talk about our first memories in life. And unfortunately, my parents split when I was 2.5 years old. My mom worked 3 different jobs to put food on the table, and I remember those memories very, very well. My first memories in life were my mom having to work 3 jobs to support ourselves, and those are very difficult memories to get over and overcome, and they motivate you. So to see your parents, particularly your mom, I lived with my mom at the time, struggle is a very powerful moment for you to see and say, hey, I don't want to struggle as a kid, and I don't want my kids to struggle when I'm later in life, and it really makes you motivated to be your best and to do your best and to be in a different position than your mom or your parents are in when you're younger.
Right. Where'd you grow up?
Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit, Michigan.
How many siblings did you have? A lot of?
I had one sibling, my brother Rob, who's 18 months older than I am.
Okay. Great. Take us back to that. I know on your podcast we were talking to you earlier, and you were saying family background is something you'd like to explore with all your guests.
Yeah, because I think it's important for people to know what they were like when they were raised. I think it's important people's influences about their parents and how they shaped and influenced your future. And it's always very, very interesting to talk about a variety of guests. I've had guests from the entertainment world, the political world, the athletic world, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, some of the most successful people in the world. Yeah. And we all have different backgrounds, surroundings, influences when we're younger, and they definitely help shape our personalities, our values, and the preparation for our future. And that's something I talk about in my own podcast.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to hear about people's backgrounds.
How is it to answer that for yourself? Like, that saying, it's hard to smell your own nose, when you self-reflect and look back. Tell us a bit about the most formative things of your early part of life.
Well, my life was, I thought I had a very difficult childhood. I stuttered as a kid, was bullied as a kid, and for a while I didn't have any friends as a kid. You're that kid that everybody makes fun of, and you go home crying to your mom, and it's not a very pleasant experience. School was not a pleasant experience for me up until a point where I was in middle school and high school. I made some friends, and I knew what friendship was. but it's really a brutal experience to be that kid in kindergarten or first grade and second grade where sitting in the corner by yourself, and it's painful, and you wonder, hey, is this going to be my life in the future?
Yeah.
And you hope it's not, and thankfully it wasn't for me, but it definitely was a big motivator. How can I get better? How can I improve? How can I stop being bullied? How can I stop stuttering? And being able to overcome these things was a huge motivation for me, and it definitely helped shape who I was as a teenager, college student, adult, and then obviously my professional life as well.
Yeah.
It's cool now because I know him as the Randy that's the CEO of Jump, that's influenced hundreds of students through his Jump Academy, right? Where you're
Jump Investors.
Jump Investors. Yeah, just so it's funny to know this guy. It's always amazing to dig deep, getting back to the college Randy and then the teenager Randy and the child Randy. But I agree with that sentiment. Like so often, the greatest and worst memories of your life are trapped inside a little boy or little girl that's inside every single one of us. And for most people, I think it actually holds them back. But for some people, they leverage it and they use it as power and rocket fuel to really move forward. It's clear that you've obviously used those early childhood experiences, something that really motivated you to move to where you're at today. But I'm really inspired. How did you get... I mean, we're making a big jump here, and we probably would stay in these younger years. But CEO, being a capture venturist, I mean, say that right.
Venture capitalist.
Venture capitalist.
Yeah.
How do you make that jump all the way to CEO? Coming from a single mother situation.
I think you just do the best you can do and be the best you can be. For me, I remember being in the 6th grade, being at a public school, and you get your report cards, and it's the dot matrix printer, and you get your actual grades for the first time ever, rather than just terrible, below average, average, good, excellent grades. You get the actual numeric value, so you get A, B, C, D, and E. And I remember in the 6th grade, I remember getting straight A's, and I thought, gosh, that's pretty cool. I'm actually good at something.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, my grades are going to be my ticket out. They're going to be the ability for me to do better and
in
have
6th
more
grade.
Opportunities. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I remember, you don't have a lot of friends in 6th grade, and you say, okay, I'm really good at something for the first time.
Right.
And said, all right, that's cool. Yeah. And in middle school, it translated as well. I did really well. I got all A's, and then I went to a private high school, Detroit Country Day, and I went to my dad and I said, hey, I'd like to go there, and will you pay for it? He said, of course I will. He believed that education was the most important investment you could make in your future, and I thought so as well. And as a parent, I think that for my kids as well, but very challenging high school, very, very smart people, and you get there very intimidated your first day. You're looking around and say, gosh, look at all these super smart people, and just put your head down, and you're very insecure at that point as well, coming from public school, and say, can I compete with all these people? And Detroit Country Day sent so many people to the best schools in the country, the Ivy Leagues, Harvard, Stanford, Penn, Brown, and you're sitting there, gosh, how can I compete? And of course, I applied to one school, greatest school on the planet, which is... I don't know, but University of Michigan, go blue and everybody.
Okay, I should have guessed.
And
I was going to say Notre Dame. Sorry.
Gosh, no, I'm taking off. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, totally.
But that was a school I always wanted to go to. And I think you're always intimidated when you're in a new situation. Being smart people is smart. Yeah. Detroit Country Day had 93 people in my graduating class. I think 42 went to Michigan.
Wow.
It's a public school, in-state tuition, one of the best schools in the country, as you guys probably know. And I'm not saying that as a biased graduate. I think it is a phenomenal school. True statement. Yeah. And you get there and you say, gosh, I'm in a whole nother level right now. Can I compete? Yeah. And when I thought about my future, I was thinking, I'm going to use my grades to create opportunities for myself and figure out whatever those were going to be. But I also thought about, okay, I'm in college now. I'm 18 years old. I want to make money, and what else can I do? What can I do in college to make money? So I started a t-shirt business. I saw some other people selling t-shirts, and I said, all right, well, what's that about? And I took $400 of my bar mitzvah money, went in the yellow pages. Now you'd go online, but there was no online then. And you're calling around and said, I want to make some t-shirts. And I ordered 100 shirts. They're $400 each. It was $100 to ship the shirt, so I made it for $5. I went in every dorm. I think there's 14 dorms at Michigan. I went door to door, and I sold my T-shirts. I held them up, and I sold out the T-shirts, and then I bought more. I sold the short sleeve for $12, and the long sleeve, which cost me $2 more, I sold for $18. So I was incentivized to buy and sell the long sleeve T-shirts. Of course, Michigan, cold weather climate.
Better margin.
Better margin. But I went to every single floor of every single dorm. I got kicked out of every single floor. I go out the back and then through the front door. And one of the skills I learned, which I coach and I teach, is the most important skill you could have is a cold calling skill.
Yeah.
So you just knock on doors and you say, hey, I'm Randy. I've got this T-shirt.
Yeah.
Will you buy my T-shirt? And people will pay for the T-shirt. Of course, it was a cash business back then.
Sure.
And you're 18 years old, you want to make some money, and now I have money for pizza and some other things that I wanted to do.
Young entrepreneur right there. I mean, makes a lot of sense.
There weren't a lot of them, by the way, on campus back then. It was a lot harder to start a company. Today, you go online, you put on a website. Sure. It's basically free. But back then, it was very, very hard. And there were essentially 4 of us on campus who were doing this.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are billionaires today. And
really?
Yeah.
That's
it's kind of crazy.
That is not how college went for me, but I'll tell you what. I wish it would have been.
We were all tight, by the way. We had the DNA in common, and it was pretty cool. It's cool to see your friends succeed.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And
wow.
Your remark, you said it's one of the most important things you teach, the cold calling.
Cold calling, selling.
Elaborate on that.
That's a good one. Yeah.
My dad said something to me when I was younger, and it was very profound. And I'm going to tone it down for actually what his exact language was. Okay. And for all of those who are listening today, you can ramp it up to actually what he did say. But he said, if you go up to 100 women and you ask them out on a date, and the first 99 women say no, the 100th person that said yes, you're going to forget about the other 99.
Right.
And I think the cold calling skill is the same. So you go and you ask 99 people, will they buy this shirt, or will they buy this policy, or will they invest in this company? And 99 people say no, and you have some kind of a shell around it. You're not worried about it. Yeah, you feel terrible the first 99, you get depressed, you have to keep going. Right. But when the 100th person says yes, you forget about the other 99. Right. And I think that's the
amazing.
I think that's the point there. But I do think cold calling is one of the best skills you can have, no matter what you're doing, no matter what profession you're in.
Yeah, and it teaches you a lot. You got to be really resilient if you're going to go door to door knocking, cold calling, all that. I mean, but it's an underrated skill. But the people that possess it, those are the people at the top of the food chain. Those are the top salespeople in any organization. I mean, salesmanship is such a great skill. Customer service, such a great skill. Like all this, it's almost like a lost art. It just feels like in today's society. But I too grew up in the Yellow Page days. I'm young enough but old enough to understand that, and it wasn't too far out of my reality. But I remember my grandpa at a young age talking about these same things, and he owned a pharmacy. He never learned to scale or got huge, but he owned a little pharmacy called Dick Rock's Ideal Drugs, and it was in business.
Dick Rocks?
Dick Rocks. His name was Dick Rock.
I'm not going to comment on his parents and the mental cruelty of the name.
It's a powerful name.
It's a powerful name.
You can stand up tall and be proud of that.
I got to tell you a story about Dick Rock. So my first truck when I was 16, I bought it for $1,000, but I bought it. It was a broken down Ford Ranger single cab, and it said on the side of the truck, Dick Rock's Ideal Drugs. And I went to a Catholic high school. It was kind of an uppity, school. Yeah. My parents stretched to get us in there, and my parents didn't have a ton of money. They argued a lot about money when I was in high school. It was tough times for them. But I did go to this uppity school that they stretched hard for my education. This is my stepdad and my mom, but I got this truck when I was 16. And I could not drive this to school. I mean, Dick Rock's Ideal Drugs, like bad. So I took this razor blade and I peeled it all off. I was getting it all off. And underneath this like creamy white truck was a rusted now Dick Rock's I really deal drugs. So my smart ass decides to spray paint it white, trying to match the color of spray paint at Home Depot to the side of the truck. And then in the light, it would just gleam. Dick Rock's Ideal Drugs. It was terrible. But yeah, that was my grandpa's pharmacy. 50 years he was in business. And so much of the stuff, these like one-liners, these things that I'll never forget, they really resonate with some of the sentiment that really comes out of one of your most important lessons, really about the value of cold calling and being able to sell like on a dime's notice. But it does seem to be one of the singular skills that is a common denominator between most successful people. When you really look at success at large, it's a crucial element. You got to be able to sell, you got to be able to close, and you got to be able to get told no a lot of times.
So I had the pleasure and the honor of speaking at Draper University around 6 or 7 years ago. Tim Draper, one of the most successful VCs in history, he invested in Hotmail, Skype, SpaceX, Tesla, so many companies, Coinbase, Robinhood, and he has a university teach entrepreneurship. And one of the assignments that he has for people is they make Draper condoms, and the students have to go out in San Francisco and sell these Draper condoms walking out to strangers. So that's a good assignment. Yeah, don't come back until you sell all the Draper condoms.
That says a lot. Wow.
So I thought, gosh, that's a great exercise. It's uncomfortable. It makes people walking up to strangers to sell these things.
Right.
And so my intern program, we have 32 this summer interns.
Okay.
We had 750 applications this year, and we teach a lot of skills, and one of them is cold calling skills. So I have a company called Sandee. We're creating a Yelp for beaches. We've cataloged over 100 categories of data from more than 100,000 beaches in 212 countries. Oh, wow. And social media is such an important part of business success right now. You want the free publicity. You want to create these cool videos. Yep. So I said, all right, I want all the interns going out to the beach and cold calling people, essentially going up to people on the beach and doing what I call a Sandee dance. So that means your job is to do a crazy ass dance and go up to people who want nothing to do with you and do something wacky. And you do a dance, because if you don't do a crazy dance, they're not going to do one. And you're going to say, excuse me, I work for this company, Sandee. I'm doing a Sandee dance. Can we film you doing a crazy dance? And your goal for every dance is to go up to someone who gets at least 100,000 views for your dance. Wow. And all the interns, their first day says, oh my God, there's no way. This is my worst nightmare on the planet. And we have a rehearsal in the parking lot of my building, by the way, which is right near Comerica Bank. It's right outside of the bank. So we sit around the parking lot and we go through rehearsals. Meanwhile, there's people going in and out of the bank, and they're looking at 32 interns, and there's 36 of us. That's awesome. And basically thinking, what are these crazy people doing? And it's hard to get out the spilkies, for lack of a better word. You're self-conscious. You're doing all these things.
Worried what people think.
Of course you're worried about people will think. Nature. I mean, you're going up to, would you want some stranger coming up to you on the beach and saying, hey man, will you do this crazy dance that I can film and use on your social media?
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. And so, but it turns out to be the single best exercise of the interns for the entire summer. It changes their life, because after a while they lose their self-consciousness, their fear, and the ability to and it helps the ability to overcome rejection. And when you look at the end of the summer, I do one-on-ones with all of them, and I say, what was the most important thing you learned this summer? They say there's a ton of things, but the ability, that Sandee dance thing,
that was big.
It's profound, actually.
It's profound. It's life-changing to people.
Yeah. Talk more about this program. This is really interesting to me. What are the range of ages? Give me a rundown of how you work your program. Always interested in stuff like this.
Yeah, so when I was a college student at Michigan, I wanted a summer program where I could learn something about a tangible business, learn intangible skills, and do something that actually adds value. Okay. So I started my summer program around 20 years ago. We started doing 1 or 2 for the summer, MBA interns. And eventually I learned after 5 or 6 years, they didn't want to do the nitty-gritty work. And being a successful business person, entrepreneur, you got to do the nitty-gritty work. Everyone loves the stature and success of having a great company. But at the end of the day, it's 99% shit work, what I call, and it's 1% if you're lucky enough to have a good outcome, you have a good outcome. But everyone wants a great outcome, right?
So good.
But it's all about the work, and I found that these graduate students were ego-driven, didn't want to do the grunt work. And so I had a guy come to me around 12 years ago, USC, sophomore, and he pleaded with me to hire him for the summer. I said, no, I don't want to do it. So he convinced me to do it. And I never looked back. No more graduate students. I'm undergrads only. Then I had 1 or 2 summer and then 3 or 4 during the summer. When the Sandee thing really took off, I said, all right, I want to do this company for sure, and I want to have a larger program. We started with 5 or 6 one summer, and then I realized I have a lot to teach people, and I really want to teach people my lessons. I talk about extreme preparation, which is my thing, and it's my DNA, and it really has changed people's lives. It's changed my life. And I said, all right, we're going to expand the program. And so we've built this program. It's a teaching internship. I spend 60 to 90 minutes a day with the interns. We have speakers every week, from the CEO and co-founder of Moelis, co-founder of Apollo, vice chairman, to founders of $8 billion companies, venture capitalists, professional athletes with $100, $150 million contracts. It's been super fun.
It's amazing.
Coaches of...
You've done this 20 years?
Well, I've done it for 20 years, but it really took off. For the last 8 or 9 years, we've had a lot of students. We had 750 applications this year. I have lead interns each summer come back and run the program the next summer. They sift all the resumes, interview all these people, and they hire. They have green light power. So I'm not involved in the process at all whatsoever. I monitor the progress. I said, where are we in January versus where we were last year? We look for 36 interns each summer, and it's the only internship program in the world where I know you have 19-year-olds hiring their peers with green light.
So good.
And managing their peers. I mean, it's hard as you get involved in life.
That is impressive.
And
how empowering.
You get older in life, you realize you can be 26 years old and managing people 34, 44, 54, 64. It's a very delicate, tough process to do. So we teach them as a young person how to do that.
How to do
all
gracefully.
Of the lead interns, the lead interns they have a golden ticket.
That's
they
cool.
they got the best summer jobs, Goldman Sachs investment banking internships, McKinsey Bain consulting. Because they have things on their resume that no one else in the world has. And it's been so rewarding for me to make a difference in hundreds of students' lives. I get the most amazing emails from people on a weekly basis these days. I learned so much for you. I got this job because of the lessons I learned to jump this summer, and it's so rewarding for me.
Isn't that crazy? I've always thought the second you start giving it away and you teach, like that's where like real fulfillment starts showing up, at least for me, because the material stuff started losing value a long time ago. But the thing that really keeps me going is like the impact. And so for JUMP to have an incredible program like this, so this obviously carries weight on a resume too for these people.
It does. I mean,
it's something.
People in Los Angeles know JUMP, and
it's all out of LA, everything.
Well, we have students. I think we have 17 schools this summer.
Cool.
And so most of the kids come in from not in Los Angeles. They don't live here, so they get housing for the summer.
It's whole summer though.
It's a 12-week program.
Wow. Is it every day intensive?
8 to 6.
Seriously?
8:01, we're having a meeting in my office. We send this serious memo a month in advance.
That's
we give
amazing.
them 15 hours of work before they start the internship, and we tell them, be prepared, because Randy's going to ask questions on the first day. And you don't want to be embarrassed.
Did you create the curriculum? Did you create the curriculum?
I created the curriculum, but we've improved it every year.
Yeah.
So we talk about all kinds of things, what it takes to start a company. We create fake companies. We go through the name, the idea, the financing, friends and family, Series A, Series B. We talk about structural impediments and mistakes people made in terms of founders and relationships and friendships and how they get.
I know, seriously.
And I've taken all these experience from the real world with my own companies and being a venture capitalist and said, all right, what is the best thing and the most valuable thing I can teach them? And at the end of the day, you teach them tangible lessons, but the most important lessons are the intangible lessons. Because at the end of the day, everyone can do the work, right? When you're at some level and you've got all these kids, and the grade point averages now are incredible. And by the way, the grade points only matter if you're doing investment banking or consulting, or you want to go to law school or something like that.
Sure.
We don't care about the grade point averages as much. We care about what you're like as people, what your experiences are like, what you're like. Would you want to hang out with that person, have a beer, or have dinner with that person? But it's really, we talk about the intangibles in terms of how do you shake someone's hand? There's 14 different kinds of handshakes.
Oh, wow.
And we go through all 14 different kinds. What's appropriate,
Can
what's
you give me an
not.
example? I love this.
Yeah.
Well, you're The Rock.
Okay.
So you're like The Rock. I mean, I've seen your videos
He's a
of the
fist,
body.
He's
I mean,
a fist
it's
shake.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm a gentle hugger also.
I get nervous around people like you because you get the bone crusher handshake, for example, of these guys, and you can actually hurt somebody's hand. Someone shook my hand years ago, and I swear to you, I had to go to a doctor because they squeezed my hand so hard that it hurt for around 6 months.
Yeah.
So, you got the politician handshake here.
Okay.
You got the politician handshake where you go and you go like this.
Oh, yeah.
There a little bit.
Yeah, a little head shake, little winky nod.
You got the sweaty palm handshake, which is
those are weird.
Limp.
Those are my
nice to
least
meet
favorite
you.
ones. Like a soft, weird one. You ever
soft
done it?
and
So it's
weird
too
ones.
awkward. Like, get in there.
Yeah.
We talk about the eye contact. You have 3 seconds to make a
1,
good
2,
first impression, and you don't want to stare at them, but
Don't be
you also
awkward.
want to know you can be subservient to that person if you don't look them right in the eye and you start to look down too soon, and it really ruins from the minute the meeting starts. You're in a different position.
Your leverage is going.
Leverage. It's not necessarily leverage, but you've decreased your status somehow in that
I
meeting,
get it.
consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, I feel that. I noticed that.
We talk about tone of voice, posture, and of course, everything comes to preparation. when you're sitting there for a
Intangibles, they're
minute.
the most valuable thing. You're right. And these are the things like savviness is hard to really describe, like an aura and energy that's coming out of someone's hard to kind of teach.
They're the
It's-
things that make a difference.
But
It's
they are,
fascinating
yeah.
You highlight.
It's what makes someone really special is their ability to like really tone in on that. But just your articulation of these points is interesting because I think this is easy to overlook this stuff.
Well, it's sort of like there are so many applicants now for a great job and so many great people for that same job. It just takes one micro something to knock you out of contention. And here's one for men. You wear a tie to some job interviews.
Right.
I don't understand why some people have a millimeter of space between the tie and the button. There's no excuse for that. So if you're looking at 100 people and someone doesn't have the ability to look in the mirror and see they have even some little space in there, they're out.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because there's 99 other people who look in that
Spotted it.
mirror and are clean and crisp and who do that.
Yeah.
And
There's
again,
value here.
Everything is about sales.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, there are so many people who come in for these job interviews, and there's a 1/4 inch of space in there.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, don't wear a tie at all if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Have your collar stays, have the shirt pressed. Again, I get the fact that sometimes shirt costs $5 to press your shirts, which is insane. Get an iron, go do it. It's worth $5.
Right.
Because you're spending all that time, and super easy things like this are no-brainers.
Yeah, this reminds me of making your bed. You know what I mean? Like, why to make the bed? You know what I mean? And like for me, I always thought, well, I was always OCD anyway, so I had to. I could not leave it like that. But I was thinking if the dream situation or opportunity knocks on my door, I want my home to be in order. I want to be absolutely prepared for the worst thing to happen. Now, this is different. Now you're going in the marketplace, presenting yourself from head to toe, especially in an industry that is obviously snare drum tight. You better have your shit together, right? But like this is another thing that is overlooked. I just feel like in the public school system world that is producing, is this talked about? Is this even a thing?
Well,
Anywhere?
let's talk about bedrooms.
Okay.
Okay, not
I
to
like
be
this
sexual
topic.
about
No, I
anything.
like
It's
this.
not a
It's a good
sexual
topic.
kind of.
Yeah.
It's a
We're not
great
gonna talk
topic.
about sex.
It's a good topic.
We can talk about sex. You guys want to talk about sex, but a podcast is not about sex. But how many Zoom interviews or meetings have you guys done where
Such
there's
a
a
good
bed
point.
in the background?
It's pathetic. You
It's
see it everywhere.
The-
I mean,
So pathetic.
this is crazy. I had a podcast. I'm not going to say who the podcast was with, but it was with a very, very senior person from Google. Had been there when they had 200 people there. She was very, very senior. So we had this amazing meeting, and she was very gracious to take the meeting with me. And we're sitting there in her house. I'm sure it was a spectacular house. I mean, imagine if you joined Google pre-IPO, you've
Sure.
been there for forever.
It's amazing,
So she's done well. And we're sitting there in this meeting, and I had 4 people from my team and her chief of staff. And her bed is in the background. And I'm sitting there thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah.
How many interviews
Something
have I
ain't right.
had with people? I met a scholarship student of mine who I'd never met before, and I paid for a full ride. So he's got tuition, board, food, housing, and he's in a dorm room, and his bed is in the background, which is a no-no. You can put up a screen or whatever on Zoom. You could put up some background. Super simple dude. And not only was a bed in there, the bed was unmade.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so it's my job to coach him,
level.
and it's fine. He's 18 years old, and I want to teach people before they get into the real world and avoid these low-hanging fruit catastrophe mistakes. Yeah. Because if that is a job interview for me and some person has a bed in the background, it's not an out, but if the bed is unmade and they can't see in the mirror what's happening here, that person is out right away. I mean, no contention. Game's over for that person.
That's so true. Like it's the small details that separate you, but it's actually the small details I think that matter most, and they say the most about you, and especially it's the details you think when no one's looking. They matter. And I would just challenge you. There's always someone watching. I mean, I always break it down to even this. Like my grandma, who I adore, who passed away from cancer, like she's my guardian angel. She's right here with me. She watches all my shit. I always want to make sure that like I'm honoring that someone's in the room. I act like someone's always in the room, and it changes how I make decisions, how I communicate. It changes how I look at really everything in life. But those small details are crucial. Just assume someone's always watching. Whoever's listening out there, just assume the person you admire most is watching all your lies that you're telling, all your bullshit that you're telling the world, all that. Like, just consider that gone. And maybe hope as you make some small decisions. But he's talking about something that most people look right past. These small details about tie and a bed being made. He's right, though. Like, if you want to get up in the 1% like you claim you do, then this shit does matter. You got to keep your house owner, no?
And this, I mean, I would say you framed it as, I want you to elaborate on it, extreme preparation.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, let's start with the most commonly asked question in the world. What do you think that question is?
What do you do?
How are you?
How are you? Yeah, how are you?
Okay. What's the average answer?
Good.
Right. So
well is the proper one.
So good is a 3.0.
Yeah.
You want to be a 3.0?
Hell no.
You want to be a 3.0?
No.
Okay.
No.
So what's
way.
an A answer?
Well, you tell me.
What's an A answer?
Grammatically, I think I'm doing well, thank you.
We're doing well. Oh, it's terrible. That's a 3.3.
Oh,
That's
man.
a B plus.
Oh, man.
I'm phenomenal. I'm outstanding. I'm great. I couldn't be better.
Incredible.
Okay,
And
sure.
just
good as it gets.
from that moment on,
I'm phenomenal.
From that, I'm phenomenal.
Yeah.
From that moment on, it changes the direction
It's so
and the
true.
mood
You
set the
of
tone.
the moon.
You just set the
right
tone.
out of the gate.
My friend in college would always say, "I'm living the dream, Matty. Living the dream."
Living the
And
dream.
the
That
moment he said that,
Right.
I just brightened up.
You brighten up
point, yeah.
from the very start of any relationship. The worst thing you can do is, I'm okay.
Ah,
right?
it's the
That's a
worst.
C. Who
That's a
wants to be
victim.
2.0?
That's a victim.
2.0, but how many people do you meet?
Good.
I mean,
What about the
on
people
these
say, "I'm
job
not good"?
interviews, I'm good. Who's coaching these people?
that's a
I'm
good
great.
point.
I'm phenomenal. By the way, if you're shitty, no one gives a shit.
Do you have a course book or something I can look at? Or
You're like 18
I'm writing
extreme.
a book called Extreme Preparation, but this is part
this
of
is
it. I
great.
mean,
Yeah.
how do you start a meeting?
Yeah.
Any meeting.
What about your actual curriculum for your students? Do you have that something that
We go through, I mean, at the end of the summer, we have the lead interns write a summary of all the things that we talked about this summer.
I would love to just look at your curriculum.
I'll show you
Yeah.
the
Okay.
lessons.
I won't
but-
share with anyone. I just want to see because I
But
love
it's
this.
interesting because you go through this 12-week program, and you have a third of the 36 interns. They go through the motions, right? They want to jump on their resume. They put venture capital intern. It helps them. So then you get a third who do a little more. And then you got a third, and it's always a bell curve every summer, who are proactive. They do all the research. They send me memos. They add value of all of these students. And it's interesting to see how many students years later take these lessons, indoctrinate them, and how much they make a difference going forward. There's nothing more frustrating than to get a note, "Oh, I have a job interview at Goldman Sachs. You have any job advice for me?" I said, "Where you been all summer, man?
Were you listening?
Were you listening? What's going on here?"
100%.
But it's those emails I get that I had the job interview at Goldman Sachs. I slayed it because of these lessons.
Yeah.
And so we go
So
through so many things like this. So how to start the meeting. We talk about these things. How do you act during a meeting? But it all comes down to preparation for every meeting. And that's something I've been coaching and teaching since I did it myself, and I learned through extreme preparation. It's a new term. It's a term that people don't really talk about. It's going to be the name of my book coming out next year.
Wonderful.
But at the end of the day, everybody is always hiring. That means if Meta just laid off 20,000 people, they're hiring for somebody like you.
Yeah, there's someone out
if
there.
you can be that person, they are hiring for you, and you'll want to be that person. And I'm going to tell you something else. It's not that hard to do.
It's really not.
It's
I agree
not.
with you.
It's not that hard to do.
It's dumb little tiny things that aren't dumb. They're actually really, really smart.
I'm so intrigued. A whole book of that. It's like things that you would think are instinct for some. Some
Okay, so
temperamentally,
here's another one. You have a meeting. Meeting's over. What do?
You thank them for meeting with
How?
you. Let me think. I would probably naturally say, no, I'm just being honest. What would I say, man? Like, I would say something like, hey, man, I was great to meet with you. I appreciate your time.
But where do you say that? You say it during the meeting?
When the meeting's closed, you mean? Or?
Yeah, like the meeting's over. What do you do?
Yeah, Matt, what do you do?
I don't have a formula, so it's instinct, whatever I do.
What do you do?
Man, I just love on the person, especially if it was a good interaction. I think
This is a job interview.
So it's a job interview.
Job
Meeting's over.
So this isn't
whatever.
like just a meeting of, okay.
You're a salesperson. You're trying to make a $10 million
job
sale.
interview.
What do you do?
I would say if the job interview were over, I would say I would be very clear. I would hope I'd be demonstrating that I'm interviewing them, like a mutual fit exploration, a little bit. And then
that's the interesting thing. During a job interview, you should be interviewing them as much as they are you.
Yeah.
By the way, and people don't do that.
Yeah, I would have that frame. Like I've been interviewing them, so I'd probably own it a bit in terms of like, based on this discussion, I'm really pleased with where we're at, and this is something I'm attracted to. What's the next step? When can I hear from you? I don't know. That's what came to my mind.
Okay, so that person walks out of the office. Then what do you do?
As the person that walked out?
Write them a manual thank you, send them a message,
Okay,
email, text.
well, there's a range of options there. So what do you do?
I'd probably email or text them in today's world.
Okay, so what percentage of people will do it? You won't text them because you don't have their cell number.
I'd send them whatever I'd send them an email. I appreciate it.
Follow up.
What would you do?
I'm thinking of it. So I did the flip on this. I'm thinking me as an employer, the things that I admire and that I look for in people. But I love someone that really wants it. That's aggressive. There's aggressive follow up. You know what I mean? It's almost like I'm looking at some of the things I did where I shouldn't have got what I wanted, and the way I got it was being so tenacious. Like I really want something, I just fucking go get it. I become indisposable, and I'm willing to work for free almost. Like I've always been able to sort of get in on that way. So I'm trying to think what that actually looks like on the flip end because it's rare.
Yeah. Well, tangibly, what would you do?
Tangibly, what is the tangible?
Answer the
Matt would
question,
send
Ron.
an email. What would you do?
Matt would send an email?
Yeah, 99% of people are going to send an email, by the way.
I want to hunt the decision maker down and look him in the eyes and have him touch a part of my soul.
Okay, well, the only person you've met is the person you've met with interviewing you.
That's
so
all I
what
got.
would you do? That's
So I
all you
can't go
got.
hunt the person.
You can't go hunt that person.
You may fail this test, Rock.
You're all going to fail the test because I'm setting you up.
Just fail it more quickly.
You would email too. That's what everyone would do. That's wrong.
I don't know. Maybe
That's why 98% of people do that.
Okay.
Right? That's what you're going to get.
Yep.
My daughter goes to Cornell. The advice they gave is 48 hours for an email. That's the worst fucking advice I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
An hour max.
Okay.
Yeah.
Send an email? No, don't send an email. Handwritten note. How many people do that? Less than 1%.
Yeah.
So what are you doing if you're on a Zoom call and you're in this job interview or sales meeting or whatever? Send an email, right?
Yeah.
That's normal, right? No.
Handwrite.
You handwrite and FedEx that letter.
Yeah.
For early morning delivery.
FedEx.
How many people do that?
Oh, that's
How many people do that?
$20
$20 to FedEx a letter.
Oh.
How many people do that? Nobody, which is exactly why you should.
Extreme prep, man.
That person who receives a FedEx handwritten letter, you're going to be the only one in the history of their life who has done that, and that person is going to remember you for the rest of their life.
Could you get away with it
absolutely.
with like flowers?
And then you're right,
or
it's
something?
not difficult.
Flowers is not good.
Too much.
Too much.
Weird.
Yeah,
Too much.
It's
creepy as fuck.
You're right. That step.
Someone sent me a Michigan football once. They came in for a job interview.
That's cool.
Bombed the interview. I said, there's no way we're going to hire this guy. So he wrote me this notepad with his little Michigan football and said, I bombed the interview. I know I did. Please give me a second chance. I knew I was going to hire that guy before I met with them a second time.
That's cool.
Because that's smart.
That was good.
Not
man.
a bribe.
You could work with that
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
you could
yeah.
grow
Work with
and
that
cultivate.
person.
But
he came back.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
sensibility.
He came back. But that thank you letter is key.
Yeah.
You have an hour to do
That's
it.
amazing, man.
And if you're doing it in person,
This is
here's
great
one as well.
advice. This is such good
This is
advice.
one as well.
So,
So
yeah.
you go in there, okay. The prep doesn't start the morning of the meeting. It starts the night before, the day
sure.
before,
Yeah,
right?
agree.
You lay out your clothes, you go on Google directions, you find out what time of the day you're going. You can specifically put that in, the exact time it's going to take you to get there, plus or minus get there 1 hour before. I say you walk into the office 15 minutes before, hang out at a coffee shop before then.
Perfect.
You go in and you're there, you show up 50 minutes before, now you're early, that's a check mark, right? You go on, you have the meeting. You're taking your handwritten thank you cards with you before you go to the meeting. You're going to leave, and an hour later, you're going to write that thank you note and drop off that thank you note in person within 60 minutes.
Right.
How many people in the history of these people's lives have done that? 0, which is exactly why you should.
It makes sense.
And it's you leave these impressions with
It's a
people.
great way to be different. Separate
I love
yourself
it,
from the
man.
herd.
Yeah, and
Be different. No one does this. This is just low-hanging fruit stuff.
It is. This isn't complicated.
Yet
It's so easy, and I
they
teach
make
these.
this kind of difference.
Yeah.
This little.
It's easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do, and nobody does it. Again,
Yeah.
which is exactly why. And you talk to the students. Well, no one does that. Oh, I shouldn't do that. I said, no, you exactly should do that for that exact reason why no one else does
This
it.
is, you remind me of, I caught an interview with Michael Saylor, you
Yeah.
sure well from Bitcoin, and he was asked a question like, one of his legacies he wants to leave is like a free education. It's kind of a noble aspiration. But the other thing he said is like, I think the biggest thing people need to learn, and he didn't have quite a way to phrase it. It feels like it's in this domain of what you're talking about. He's like, most people lack kind of like a statistical executive functioning know-how instinct to navigate life. It wasn't the acquisition of data or knowledge, or it was like these sorts of things. Like,
Yeah.
I can't remember how he phrased it, but he's like, this is the biggest
Yep.
gap for, or even how to help people assess a decision or behaviorally.
Yeah.
It's so, it's not common knowledge.
It's like everyone's looking for the secrets to life, but so many of the things that matter most are like, they're literally like little tiny tangible things that can start to create momentum in places like that. And they're looking in all the wrong places. First, you got to do this, and this right before you worry about this. So I always think this, like everyone's always trying to change the world, but they're littered with holes in them. Like, why don't you fix you first before you go try to fix the world? This idealistic vision of what you need to do to like change the world, but you haven't even figured out how to change yourself. This stuff's even simpler than that. Like these are little tiny things that could create little wins, little bit of momentum,
Or massive
and that
wins,
will compound, or massive. It could lead to massive things. Like that one thing you didn't do that like set you back. You just don't know how things compound forward or in the reverse. But a lot of it is small things that may have elevated someone else that maybe wasn't even as qualified as you deep down, but that you'll never know now. You know what I mean? Like this is good stuff though to be teaching, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about this anywhere.
So here's another one. My daughter's boyfriend, who's this amazing kid. And by the way, when you say kid, I mean, we're parents
it's usually
now.
20-something.
Yeah, you're that old guy. And I
Yeah.
still think of myself as a 30-year-old.
So I
mentally.
I get that. Yeah.
But he goes to Wisconsin. He's going to job fair, and he pings me, hey, you have any advice for me? And I said, yeah, okay. So what do you want to get out of the job fair? He said, well, I'm going to meet all these companies. There's 70 companies there. I said, okay. Do you know the names of the people who are going to be there beforehand from these companies? He said, no. I said, of the 70, how many companies would you like to meet? He said, 14. I said, okay. What's the physical structure and location like when you get there? Can you see, do these people wear name tags? Yes. I said, from 10 to 15 feet away, can you read the name tags? Yes. Easy. Are you going to bring one of those leather folders during all these meetings? He said, yes. The resume is going to be in there, yes. I said, if you're bringing 14 note cards, bring 15 because you may mess up on one of them.
Okay.
Go to a stationery store. Don't be cheap. Even if you have no money, think about the time value of money.
Right.
And get a thick card because the card represents you. You got a thin card, you're flimsy. If you got a thick card, you're solid.
Yeah.
Right? So I said, can you put and evenly space out these 15 cards in the leather folder so it's not like a softball in the middle? He said, yes. I said, okay, perfect. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to do a drive-by of all 14 companies. You're going to write their names down, and you're going to go into the corner. You're going to take 15 minutes, and you're going to go on LinkedIn and get the resumes of all these people. You're going to write 3 bullet points for all 14 people down. You're going to have information about these people that nobody else had. Hundreds of people going to these job fairs, nice to meet you, networking, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to blow these people away having 3 bullet points about their background that no one else has. They're going to ask you, how did you do this? And you're going to tell them the technique, and that's going to blow them off their chair.
Yeah, be honest. It'd be great.
Right?
No one's doing it.
No one's doing it. Okay. Part 2 is you're then going to pre-write these thank you notes. 80 to 90% of it is going to be the same. You can pre-write these. And you're going to time every one. And you're going to write the handwritten thank you notes. You've got 60 minutes or less to hand these thank you notes back. And your success rate is going to be very high.
Yeah.
What was his win percentage of the 14?
100%?
100%.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, why wouldn't
it was
be?
a fait accompli before he even stepped foot into the job fair.
It says so
Such
much
a
about
sticky
you.
book idea.
It's so easy to do, by the way, and people don't do this.
Yeah.
Right? Do things that other people haven't done before. Think creatively.
Yeah.
Don't listen to people. Well, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
This is how my college tells me what to do. The 48-hour rule is just absurd on its face.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good topic.
Standing out.
Standing out. Be different.
Yeah. You really are pinpointing some things that are just not talked about.
They're not, colleges don't teach this. And our summer program is designed to add more value than 4 years of college. And some of these students are spending $300,000 a year. My daughter goes to Cornell. I think the tuition is $82,000 before you even touch the service of living expenses, housing, and daily life. And these techniques really matter, and they make a huge difference in people's lives, which is one of my missions.
I was researching a topic for this speech that I just put together. I ended up speaking for 5 hours. It was a long format. It was a long day.
You're a great speaker, by the way.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
He's an amazing speaker. He's got a certain presence, and he's very articulate, and he's vulnerable.
Yeah, honest.
Got a great skill.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. But I came across just a lot of alarming statistics, really about like dream achievement in general, right? And there was a study by a group called the Wealth Research Group that said really like this is a worldwide statistic, but 98% of people that live on this planet are going to die without achieving their dreams. And it really just spoke to people are going to get nowhere near their greatest potential. And sort of as I was articulating all these points, like looking at all these hard stats, especially in America, it's like, it was really sad how many people just get nowhere near their greatest potential. Trying to understand, like, for me, it's this. I've always been in pursuit of the next version of myself. Like, I always feel like it must be natural in people, right? And in my circle, it is kind of. But I feel like I'm far away from the people that aren't after achievement. What is this thing? Like, if you guys all had to pinpoint your reason of what do you think is holding people back the most in life? Fear. That's
fear
a good
of failure.
one. Fear, yeah. People that fear just stop them and they don't ever do the thing.
Yeah, their fear of
rejection.
Their fear of failure. Their fear of embarrassment. They're
what people
afraid
think.
to go through all the effort and not have something in return. They're fearful of money. They don't have money to start the company.
Fear.
They're insecure. They have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, we can keep going on this.
But fear covers it all in a big sense.
I think fear of a failure. I mean, we're all afraid of failure. I mean, I've had 60 people on my show, and I think 50 of them have all said, yeah, we fear failure. Some of them said, no, I don't fear failure. And I'm not cut of that cloth. I mean, we all.
Yeah, it's rare though.
You know, and I think as you become successful, you've had some success, and you do something new. We're all self-conscious about it, right? You don't want to fail because everyone's looking at you and saying, "Hey, you know, they've had some success," and you know this is too. You've been extremely successful. When you're very successful, not everyone's that happy for you.
Ah, good point.
You know, they're rooting for you to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, they're envious, they're jealous. That should be me.
Yeah.
I'm better than Erik.
Yeah.
And I had a lot
People
of that
close
as
to
well.
you,
yeah, some people. I mean, you really learn who your friends are.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
It's funny, the people that root me the most on, I would say, are way above me. They're the ones that are like, we want to know everything about what's going on with me. They have so many questions. They have advice for me. They want me to, I want you to meet this person. They're sending me texts and DMs. It's just really cool that, like, oftentimes your biggest cheerleaders are the ones that have achieved like things that are, you know, much greater than yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
That's cool though. You know what I mean? Like, it means you're in the right company. People should be cheering you on, and I cheer people on. I love seeing people win. I get off on it. I think it's the most fun thing is for me to see people I care about win. But you don't feel that back all the time. You just don't. Unfortunately,
you know, you said something. You made a little quip earlier that regarding this fear piece, but you said it's one of my missions in life. And I was just thinking, as you guys are discussing this fear piece, I think the absence of like a meaningful mission, vision, deep sense of purpose that would justify the willingness to risk or the willingness to get disapproval or the willingness to struggle.
That helps you, right?
And and I even right before we hit record on this podcast, you'd made another little quip, Randy, about and you mentioned, you know, I can't remember if it was personal or business, but enhancement of life and business. And you mentioned, what is your mission? I mean, this show, Man on a Mission. Yeah. How would you characterize your personal or your business mission in life?
That's a good
My
one.
mission in life is to make a difference in people's lives. And at the end of the day, I want to make a difference in 100 million people's lives.
There you go.
For the positive.
Amazing.
And I have no idea how I'll ever measure that.
Yeah.
But I think as my show, and it's gaining a lot of steam right now, it you know, takes a while.
For sure.
You've seen this as well.
100%.
It's as more and more people hear the mission, and my goal, just like you guys, is to have amazing guests on your show who share stories about their life. We've all had so many failures. And at the end of the day, everyone in life has had failures. So it's how do we come and get past our failures on our path to success? How do we motivate ourselves to be successful? What motivates us? And hearing the stories of successful people, because everybody on my show has struggled. Mark Cuban slept on the floor, no electricity. Yeah. Car on the side of the freeway, no car, no nothing. I mean, lights turned off, and you see Mark Cuban, the owner of the Mavericks and Shark Tank.
It's a good story.
And people really don't know the story behind Mark. Milet, one of your mentors, same thing. I mean, he was showering in a public shower because he
had a fake car.
Live.
I've never heard anyone that has literally, he put magnets on his car that made it look like a different model car, like a Mercedes. It wasn't a real Mercedes. It was like a Toyota that he made look like a Mercedes. And one time he was telling a story, he gets pulled over, and he was following all his work partners at his financial firm or company that he worked for were following him up to some big meeting. He was sort of leading the charge. He got pulled over by a cop, so everyone kind of pulled off the road with him. And a cop went and smacked the door. He kind of just put his hand on the door, and the whole door panel fell off in front of all his
so
coworkers.
Funny, by the way.
It's a funny story. You can imagine someone that's trying to fake it. You know what I mean?
No way.
Love it, my lap.
So true though.
But you know, I'm up there in Coeur d'Alene for the summer, and I'm hanging out, and we're at this nice resort, nice residential complex where we have our home, and I'm hanging out at there's a place on property called the Tree Bar.
Yes,
it's a bar. In the middle of a bunch of trees. We were there about a week ago.
Amazing place.
This kid comes up to me, and he says, his name is Connor. Shout out to Connor. And he says to me, I recognize you from your podcast. I absolutely love your podcast. It's made a huge difference in my life, and here's how. He said the David Rubenstein podcast, which is how he found me. He said, your preparation you've done is beyond what I've ever thought of, and it's made a huge difference in my life. This guy got a meeting with Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, which is impossible to get. And he starts going through, it's impossible.
By applying your preparation.
But by applying the prepreparation and the motivation for my podcast, he's telling me this, and I'm almost tearful. I mean, I was trying, you know, he's 22 years old. He just graduated from Santa Clara, and there's nothing better than when someone comes up to you, whether you know them or not, but particularly, I mean, this happened 4 times, by the way. Right. So I have no idea who's listening to my podcast. I see the stats. I'm glad it's growing, and I'm pumped about that. But you got 4 random people coming up to me that you've changed their lives forever. Yeah. That's what it's all about, man. I mean, that's just the greatest thing ever, and that's the reason you do your show. That's the 100%. Reason I do my show. Is to make this world a better place and to make a difference in people's lives.
I would encourage our audience to go search his his show out, In Search of Excellence. There's some great guests. I guess I would dream to have. One day we'll get there, but you've had some amazing interviews.
Yeah.
You really have. Do you mind saying some of the names and maybe some of your favorite interviews? Because this is a cool topic too.
Well, I definitely am not going to say favorites because so many of them are incredible. But I launched my show with Sam Zell, who invented the monitor read, who unfortunately passed away around 4 months ago. Was a mentor to me. And
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. God bless his soul. Sorry, man.
Sorry. But I've had some great guests on the show. We had Mark Cuban, Sharon Stone, who was at one point the most famous movie star in the world. I've had Tim Draper, one of the most successful VCs in the world. I had Mike Tyson on my show a few months ago. I've had so many amazing people. It's just hard. I've got Mike Pompeo coming up, former Secretary of State, Director of the CIA, Steve Aoki coming up.
Oh, Steve.
Floyd Mayweather, Martin Luther King III.
That's cool, man.
CEO of Marriott. But
what are you going to ask Floyd?
What am I going to ask him? Got a lot of questions for Floyd.
That's a personality. I don't think there's another personality in the world like Floyd Mayweather.
But it's been great. Yeah. Kevin O'Leary, Damon John. Oh, yeah. I mean, they're all so famous. They all have amazing stories where at some point we've all had some event, some fulcrum event where it could have gone south, it could have gone north, and they had some major event in their life that motivated these people to succeed. Right. Sammy Hagar was on my show.
Love Sammy.
His YouTube video.
He should come to Gaza. I think he'd enjoy Gaza.
Yeah. I got him through my buddy Miles Scully, who's a partner in his company called Santo Tequila. Sammy Hagar was the OG in the tequila space. He was the first celebrity to create a tequila brand, Cabo Wabo.
They're all doing it. Yeah, that was
Cabo Wabo. He sold the company for $93 million 20 years ago, which is
that was a long time.
Shit ton of money.
I remember that. Yeah.
These stories. I mean, Sammy lived in
Cabo,
orange groves. His father abusive, living in his car with his mom and his three siblings. These stories that I get from my guests are just so inspirational. They're incredible. I've had Milet on my show. I had Milet. John Gordon's been an amazing guest.
John's great.
Damon West has been on my show. One of the greatest stories of all time. I hope you listen to Damon West. Damon West was a high school superstar, D1 quarterback, had everything going for him, worked on Wall Street, took meth one day.
Oh, that's right, yes. He did go to prison.
Addict. Robbed homes, was a famous burglar before he got caught, flashbang through the window, U.S. Marshal Service, sentenced to basically life in prison, I think 70-year sentence. Yeah. Came out of prison and has done so much good. Wrote a book with John Gordon called The Coffee Bean.
He's going to do this podcast.
He's going to do on the show one of the great books of all time.
I tell that story a lot, actually.
One of the great books of all time.
It was good.
I will encourage you all to listen to the podcast because I want to tell you about The Coffee Bean. He's got a lot to say about it. But just hearing these stories about people in life. Mike Horn swam down the Amazon River with no motorized transport.
Whoa.
Incredible.
That's incredible. I mean,
it's risky.
It's risky, held at gunpoint by these tribes. Wow. Drug dealers, I mean, bitten by a snake, nearly died. I mean, these stories of people are just incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
storytelling, isn't it powerful?
Storytelling is very, very, very powerful. And we all have something to share. Whether you have a podcast or you don't have a podcast, we all have something to contribute to life.
I'd love to just pick. I love how your mind works, Randy, in terms of just extreme preparation. Like, tell us a little bit about your own thinking when you prepare for a guest or taking on this. You don't seem like you don't seem like the temperament who would take on any project lightly, right?
No, I don't.
You're not like you so at all.
My goal is to be the best at whatever I do.
Yeah. Tell us some
I failed miserably so many times, but that's my goal.
Yeah. Tell us your thinking. Like, so you're taking on this season of your life, your pot. It's it's a really neat pivot to hear you talk about in terms of your accomplishments and the joy you get out of even off interview. You were talking about a gentleman you coach who reached out to you, But I'd love to hear how you think about taking on this task, like interviewing these people. Where does your mind go, your preparatory mind?
My mind goes, I want to be the most prepared person they've ever met in their entire life. And that's the advice I give to all of my mentees.
Yeah.
Go into every meeting as the most prepared person that someone has ever met.
Yeah.
And I think in my podcast, 99% of my guests have said that I'm the most prepared person that they've ever met. And this goes from Milet to Erik Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, the current ambassador to India, to David Rubenstein. These people have spoken thousands of times, and it's a great compliment. And the interesting thing is when you do the research, the interviews, whether it's a podcast, a real-life meeting, you establish a connection that is different and unique.
Yes.
And they have great respect for you. Yeah. And the meetings go better, and the podcasts go a lot better. So we can go a lot deeper than people go, and we often do.
Yeah.
And as much as I may have cried on this interview, I've had 6 of my guests cry. Not that I'm trying to, but going into the podcast, I know more about them, and a lot of them have said, you know more about me than I know about me. And I've heard that around 11 or 12 times now. And it's just a great way to be. I spend a lot of time preparing for my podcast.
That says
22 hours on average for each podcast.
That is amazing. I mean, it's such a testimony to that age-old saying, like, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
It's true.
Like, this is a man from selling those T-shirts in Michigan.
Yeah.
To now, it's not surprising.
And he tapped into something that I've been preaching a lot lately too, but like just for people that are out there considering like the outcomes of how they want their life to look is like, why wouldn't you want to be the number one at something? Like Randy prepares to be the number one.
You're already standing on the summit.
He's willing to go the distance and give the repetitions it's going to take to be number one, but he prepares like the number one. So I challenge everyone always with this thought is like, what kind of life would it be if you weren't trying to be the best at something?
Well, being the best is a great goal, but for some people it's intimidating to do that. But in terms of the preparation front, I hear so many people say, send out 1,000 resumes, 100 resumes. Okay, you're doing it wrong.
That ain't it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to think about preparation in a new way that they haven't thought about before. Is you're doing more work up front, and it's actually way less work at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Send a cover letter, do research, Google. And by the way, I talk about coaching page 47. Page 47 means if there's 47 pages of Google results, you read all 47 pages of Google results. Because at the end of the day, the results and the information you learn on page 47 could be very different and have factoids that no other
there you go. There's the
review
gold.
or has
touched on
mentioned before, and they're going to ask you, how'd you get that from some piece that happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah,
you don't know why it's sitting back there at page 47.
Right.
You probably can have the capacity to see it because you've read 46 pages too, or appreciate the nugget. It would go over somebody's health.
By the way, the little nuggets matter. If you're preparing something, you said, sales were up 17%. That's impressive when you're in a meeting.
Yeah.
What about 17.47%?
There's even better.
Even better. Who does that? Nobody, which is exactly why you should.
Right.
I love it.
Right? I mean, let's get to the decimal point.
Are your progeny like you? Are your kids like you? Do they have...
I
bet you.
So let
me see if this means anything.
You're a dad, and it's like when you tell your kid something, it's like, okay, whatever. When someone else tells your kid the same advice, that's good advice.
That's true.
Let me challenge you.
Even Randy can't.
Let me challenge you with a piece of information that maybe...
They're listening to me more and more now.
The Mark Twain quote, I thought,
Let me ask you...
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Erik.
Let me ask you while it's fresh on my mind before I lose it to like maybe try to pair up with you a little bit. Tell me about karma.
Karma is my dog's name.
Not the Eastern concept.
No,
just the dog.
During the interview,
only he would know what I mean.
Okay,
during the job interview process, I believe you got to prepare. Right. Yeah. And like all of us, we're very busy. Yep. And when someone gets a meeting with me, they've usually gone through 1 or 2 steps before this with my team. And I ask people to do a bunch of work. We have a team of small team. You got to have the right DNA to work with me. Okay. So we give them a bunch of work, 10 hours of work. If they don't want to do the work, they're not going to meet with me. And you have to get through 2 steps before that.
Okay.
Right. So I asked them to, tell me what you think about Sandee, JUMP Investors, my podcast, company called Color Card that I run. And then we give them some other things to do. And if I like it, then I'll meet with them. First question I asked, well, not the first one. One of them is I say, what's my dog's name? My dog's name is Karma, and it's on my website. So if they don't know my dog's name, the meeting is over then and there.
So we're good.
Because it's right there in front of you.
That's so good.
We did our homework. Well,
Let me ask. You triggered a question. Like, this might be a page 47 discovery. I haven't read 46 pages about you, but
there's only like
3,
eight results or something.
But speaking of karma, like, how would you characterize, and I think one thing we've lost in today's world is the capacity for people to speak freely about either faith, spiritual, or political topics. Like, because everybody, the moment you're asked a faith question, you're like, well, shit, I'm going to alienate 47% of people are going to disagree with me, all those things. Yet, nevertheless, we all want to hear it, and we appreciate when people are earnest about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, how would you frame, your cosmology of faith or your spiritual orientation? How would you? It's almost not really answerable in a truly philosophical sense. So I know it's not a soundbite answer, but I've really enjoyed your mind today and your heart.
Me too.
And then
awesome.
I wanted to,
so
and then I was like, I want to learn more about your mentor.
You want to have dinner with him, huh?
No, your mind. You could just tell a mind that like, I'm
great.
already wanting to read your book and all that.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I'd love to hear you talk about that, like, or how it's maybe evolved in your life, like where you fall in that philosophical, cosmological, spiritual.
We're Jewish, and I was raised Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed. My kids were bar and bat mitzvahed. I'm not a religious Jew.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I believe all of the readings.
Yeah.
But I love the culture. So we do Shabbat dinner on Friday nights.
Nice.
Most of the time we light the candles, we say the prayers, and it's just something that I enjoy doing.
Practicing,
I wouldn't call myself a very religious person because I'm not. In terms of faith, I say prayers every morning and at night when I go to bed, and gratitude. I think gratitude is so important in life.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of reading, and I read a lot of self-help books, and something that I've done recently, I tried to take a gratitude walk. John Gordon talks about this, and I think it's very helpful to be appreciative of all the things that we all have in life. And no doubt, some people in life have a much, much tougher time than the rest of us have.
Yeah.
And we're sympathetic to those things. But I think at the end of the day, if you try to have the right mindset about being grateful for what you have, and you have to build on every little thing that you have, micro step. But in terms of politics, on my show, we don't talk about politics. I mean, I took a boat over here to meet with you guys, and someone said, what are you going to Coeur d'Alene for today? Going to town. I said, doing this podcast. And what about your podcast? Who are your guests? And said, I'm doing Mike Pompeo on Friday. And he said, do you like Mike Pompeo? What about his politics? I said, I'm interested in hearing about Mike Pompeo.
The man.
And it doesn't matter to me whether he likes Donald Trump or he doesn't like Donald Trump. That is not what my show is about. I'm interested in learning about Mike Pompeo. We've had some guests on my show who definitely have strong political views.
It happens.
I don't want to get into those conversations. And at my own dinner table with my kids, my son is 19, my twins are 21. It is a lively conversation. And sometimes it's not that pleasant.
Yeah.
And they have divergence. I mean, it sucks, but you encourage your kids to be who they are. They have different views. Their views don't have to be mine.
But just
they're definitely
politics
not mine.
can be so jarring.
Politics are it's just,
the worst.
sometimes I just say
Cutthroat.
we're not talking about this.
It didn't
tonight.
used to be that way, though. I feel like politics used to have like articulate debates or really about policy and about how to move things forward in a more efficient manner. But now it's like it's a no-no at the dinner table because there's so much like vitriol it's somehow, I don't know how this happened, but it happened.
That's an aspiration. You're farther along in the father track than me, but my aspiration would be like, I hope I can create an environment where I obviously have a hope they lean a certain direction or see the world.
For sure.
But that they're emotionally safe, and above all, to have the courage to be honest and straightforward with
100%.
a point of view. and know that at the end of the day, the friendship or the family bond, like, and I think that's a matter more of things like integrity that transcend.
Debate used to be fun, right? Can you create that in your boys and your four
I
boys?
I hope there's an environment where they have the courage to be themselves, fully individuate. But this is a hypothetical when it's your actual. Yeah. The actual is a lot more hard to emotionally manage, I would imagine.
But, society has definitely changed, and like the whole culture of woke and like that whole topic. It's such a controversial topic now, and I wonder like just the media in general. I'll just speak for this one point. You think about education system, you think about pop culture and like Hollywood, really, and you think about media. It does control the flow of information. And so I just wonder, are the cards stacked up against young people to where they're supposed to be thinking a certain way, and there's a lot of control that's really being stripped out of the parent's hand? These are, I think, questions that are worth asking
for mankind. I mean,
it's worth asking.
It's different for us, right? Because I'm 54 right now. You guys are not 54. You're younger than me.
You look great.
But, well, thank you.
I mean, good for you.
But
54 is the new 25, man. Let's be honest. Who cares?
By the way, Mike Roizen is my next guest on my show.
Who?
Mike Roizen, Chief Wellness Doctor at the Cleveland Clinic. And he
cool.
said
Awesome. My partner goes there.
The new 90 is the current 40.
Awesome.
So we'll talk about
Is he a longevity guy?
He's a longevity guy.
I love this topic.
He's brilliant.
We talked about that.
But it's different today than it was back when I was growing up. I mean, we live in a cancel culture. Yeah. You're afraid to say one wrong word and people just jump on you. And, I have these summer interns. I've got my own kids. And, my kids say, Dad, you can't talk like that. And I said, talk like what? And you think nothing of something. And you don't even think about something that could be inappropriate in today's world. There's no negative intention or thought. Things today are just different. So we're living in a world right now where people are afraid to
speak their mind,
or say one word, and it's very tough. I tell people, don't talk about politics at work, period, because at the end of the day, you're going to piss somebody off.
It's not worth it.
And people are so divided today. You love Biden, you hate Biden, you love Trump, you hate Trump. And by the way, you could hate Biden, but your boss could love Biden. I mean, it's you never know who's gonna where people are. So just don't talk about controversial topics in the workforce. There's no upside there whatsoever. In fact, it can hurt you badly. I
think where it's gone too far is now the American flag can be perceived as something that's hateful and bigotry, and it's like no more national patriotism. It just seems like we're getting to a place where where does this end? It's getting further and further to a place where...
I mean, this is me talking about, but the West is in decline.
Let's see. How old is America? 300 years old? I mean, it's not that old in the big scheme of things. When you think about history and European history, it takes on a different meaning, but freedom is a unique thing, and it's very new. Freedom hasn't been around that long. America was just simply an idea. It was something totally different. No longer did you have to be born into a situation like where monarchs are born. It's interesting to think, how long does it survive, and does history repeat itself? And these are just interesting questions to ask. And are we getting further away from that or closer to it? I don't know how you look at it, but at the end of the day, this is why I think good people should step up to the plate and at least step up and just say, all right, here's what truth looks like.
We posed this question to John Gordon, back to your point about it's never a good idea.
We did. It was good. He
had an insightful answer, because it's reckless to be cavalier and just in any old workplace. But he said he brought it to a matter of discernment. If he felt led to take a stand for such.
Yeah, which hill do I want to die on?
Because you could die on 100 hills a day.
He doesn't want to die on all of them, but he'll pick his hills. I thought that was a good answer. I thought that was a good answer.
Ultimately, whether to utter a message or take a stand or anything, that's a deep contextual situational discernment. It's not.
Well, in his industry,
to just,
he's got to be careful. He could get canceled so quickly. So where does the truth for you, where you draw? It's drawing the line. Are you going to stand up and say something, or But he picks his battles.
Yeah, we encourage courage, freedom, individuality. And at the end of the day, we're living in a world right now where you really have to catch yourself and think about before you even open your mouth. Yeah. And I think it's
true.
It's different in many ways. It's very sad rather than encouraging conversation.
It is sad.
I see so much discontentment and fighting, and it's
hatred.
Hatred's a good word.
Shitty.
I mean, it's a terrible word, but
no, I get what you're saying. It's shitty,
accurate, is what you're saying.
it's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, there's certain things that I like The Rock's approach. Not me, The Rock, but the real Rock.
You are The Rock.
Yeah.
He's the new Rock. Rock 2.0.
If politics could be thought of like a sports coach, like think about like the best D1 school in the country, like how that coach is bringing that team together.
Yeah.
They're
Jim
rounding
Harbaugh,
their
you talking about?
Jim Harbaugh. Yeah.
Okay.
Who I do it.
Future podcast guest, by the way. I'm in search of excellence.
That's awesome.
But sports is
He's obsessed too,
I think it's a great way to look at it. Winning and losing is something that I think it should not be controversial. Like thinking about sort of like winning. The Rock doesn't really speak a political point of view, but the main point is like everyone gets behind his message about work hard, winning, like, doing the work with no one's work, hardest worker in the room. That's his motto, right?
Topics, yeah.
And he brings in a whole bunch of people that are all like, yes, yes, yes. The second he puts a political thing out, he cuts that audience in half. But he stays to one message that really is good for the whole movement of like not being a victim. That's what, if you think about what The Rock is preaching, he's preaching don't be a victim.
Self-reliance.
All through his actions. And it's not controversial because he keeps it under a light that attracts everybody. And that might be a better approach to try to fight back against the things you don't like in society is get people chasing their dreams. Get them going after the best version of themselves and stay in that lane because it's a good lane to stay in and you're still making a difference. You're still challenging
and
people,
in private
right?
one-on-ones, there's a time and place for certain messages.
Yeah, that's
once
different.
Trust is built. Yeah,
yeah, but he purposely chooses that not to use the big voice box. You know what I mean? He doesn't use his platform to do that. He stays in the lane that has good output and has good outcomes. And so that's also something you can learn from. But definitely, like when good men do nothing, I feel like evil does triumph.
At the same time, and if you're in the need of someone standing up. Yeah.
But again, most people aren't. They're just consuming. They're not creating anything. All they do is they get mad at the TV and they're not doing anything. Like so, I always challenge people: become a creator. If you don't like something, go out and change it. Go out and win in life. That's the best kind of revenge, anyway. You know what I mean?
So one of the things that
totally agree.
Many people misconstrue is you have to be successful to give back, and that's absolutely 100% false.
Love this.
So when I was 27 years old, I had the great benefit and luck of creating a charity event for a nonprofit law firm called Bedside Legal Services in Los Angeles. And people said 27-year-olds don't create charity events. I said, well, sure they do. Watch me. Exactly. Yeah. So I had an idea for a charity concert at a concert venue called the House of Blues, which was a cool venue.
Love House of Blues.
In Los Angeles.
Yep.
And I called the CEO 10 times, Greg Trojan, and didn't return my call. And finally I said, I'm coming in for a meeting. And I took
That's awesome.
the executive director of Bedsedic, David Lash, who went in for this meeting, and he said, yeah, I've heard the pitch. You'll never sell out. I said, oh, yeah, we will. And so
good for you.
He charged us. We had our concert on Tuesday night, the first event. It's an event night where they're closed. I think we paid $22,000 for the venue. Right. Then we had to guarantee them another $20,000 in food and beverage because they had all the staff. So a shit ton of money. Yeah.
Especially for a 27-year-old, any 27-year-old, that's a commitment.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't even have a planning committee yet. So I just had this idea for a concert, and Dave and I went in there together, and we went out to and so I said, okay, done, we'll do that. And David and I walked out in the parking lot, and he said, all right, you're either going to make me look really bad and get me fired, or you're going to make me look like a hero. Yeah. And at that point, I said, all right, let's go to some friends, and we'll invite 30 people to be on a planning committee, and we'll go sell tickets to summer to law firms, students who are working there for the summer. And the plan was a spoke distribution model. We had 4 chairs, including me, and we had a planning committee of 30 people, including the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, was on our first planning committee, married to Kamala Harris. And we sold out the House of Blues. And I'm just going to tell you, one of the greatest moments of my life was sitting on the, standing on the rail of the balcony at the House of Blues in Los Angeles, just seeing this place packed, dancing to the Boogie Nights,
Wow.
disco cover band, just going crazy and saying, wow, this is something we can all do. We can create, we can make a difference. That event, our first year raised $96,000. And in year 3, and the venue holds 900 people. And year 3, we had 1,800 people. The fire marshals came to close it down.
Wow.
And the event now is in its 26 years, something like that.
Amazing.
I ran it for 10 years. But it's
You
a
passed on the
study in-
torch?
Passed down the torch. One of the qualities of being a good leader is find your replacement who can be a leader. And
Said that a lot of times.
I'm very proud about that event. And I think we can all make a difference regardless of what position you are in
Totally
life.
agree.
I was a lawyer. I had left the practice of law. I was at Sun America in a non-legal position and said, I'm going to do this. I want to create this. And it's been one of the most rewarding things that I've done in my life, and one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. But everyone should give back. It doesn't matter whether your stature, your economic status, whatever. You can all volunteer. You can all do better. We all have ways we can improve
100%.
how we live, how people live. And giving back is just so important. And people say to me, what's the best thing that you have done in your life? It's not about making money for me. It's about making a difference and giving back. And there's such an amazing feeling when you can contribute time or money and make a difference in people's lives. And I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
All right, that was an amazing conversation with Randall Kaplan. To learn more about him, check out some of his amazing guests. His podcast is called In Search of Excellence. Remarkable interview. I know I'm already eager to consume his forthcoming book, so check it out.
Most people aren't, they're just consuming. They're not creating anything. All they do is they get mad at the TV. They're not doing anything. So I always challenge people to become a creator. If you don't like something, go out and change it. Go out and win in life. That's the best kind of revenge anyway.
I've had guests from the entertainment world, the political world, the athletic world, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, some of the most successful people in the world. Who does that? Nobody, which is exactly why you should.
Oftentimes your biggest cheerleaders are the ones that have achieved things that are much greater than yourself.
Sure.